Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Bradford, and today we're going to talk about different types of data that teachers and administrators use, what they actually do with this data, what kind of supports out there for them for using this data, what makes them decide what data to use, both teachers and administrators. Um, and I'll talk a little bit about how I think we can use data to actually help us kind of see problems before they're problems and be a little bit more proactive as opposed to reactive, both at the district and at the building level. All right, so first off, what types of data are teachers and administrators using? For me personally, I'm a high school teacher. What I use data for attendance, I track attendance. I also use state testing scores, data that gets returned from the state on how well the students did on the state test that they just took. One of the classes I teach is a state tested class, so I'm very concerned on what those scores are when they come back, so I can adjust instruction for the following year, see what we were good at, what we weren't so good at, and then kind of adjust instruction from there. So that's what the types of data that I use. With the attendance data, that's used more for seeing how many days students have missed, to wonder if we should put out an attendance alert, to start following up with them on why they're missing so much school. And as a teacher and administrator with House Bill 410, that has become a really big issue, attendance in school. And making sure we're doing everything we can, administrators and teachers doing everything we can in order to get the kids at school on a regular basis. So that's what teachers and administrators, the types of data they're using, and of course how they're using that data. One of the other ways that administrators use OST results, state testing results, is scheduling for the next year. If they know that a student is not doing as well as they could on their state tests, and they're only getting ones or twos, they need at least threes on their state test, then they might schedule them for a remedial class in that particular subject the next year. So administrators are using that data as well for even scheduling. So in order to understand this data, you can get all the data you want, but you have to understand it. One of the greatest supports in the school, I think, for teachers are other teachers, usually but not always senior teachers, teachers that have been around longer, that have seen this data, know how to read it, and then in turn how to interpret things in the data and adjust your teaching and or management skills appropriately depending on the scores and the information you get from the data. So teachers, I'd say, are the first kind of line of defense in helping you understand the data or getting support for the data. The next avenue to follow up on are with administrators. If you're a teacher, go to the principal, go to the assistant principal, and ask them, what does this stuff mean? They were all teachers themselves at one time, so they want to help you. They will help you understand that data. If you don't understand it, and I think that shows them, the administrators in the building, that you're not afraid to go up and ask questions if you have questions about that data, to make sure we're doing what's right and what's best for the students, and really trying to be professional about your job. So I really think that going to the administrators is only going to help you as a teacher. And then where teachers and administrators can go, kind of the person who kind of knows all as far as data for the building is your data coordinator. Every building has one. They're more than willing to help. It's probably your biggest asset when dealing with data, using the data coordinator. He has, or she has, more authorization, or just as much authorization, I should say, in the building as the building principal to data. So if you need any sort of attendance information, or any sort of really any information that is tracked in pupil personnel, or by the administrators counseling in the office, he can or she can look that up for you, and they usually are more than willing to help. Sometimes they might have to get authorization to give you certain data, but they will do that. They can help you out. That's probably, again, your biggest asset in the building. If other teachers can't help you, because sometimes they don't have all the answers. If administrators can't help you, again, sometimes they don't have all the answers. If you go to the data coordinator in your building, chances are he or she will be able to help you. Okay, next, talking about what are the factors that influence the use of data in the buildings for teachers and administrators. Well, I think the biggest thing is when it's mandated by the state. So I spoke earlier a little bit about House Bill 410 and the attendance bill that was put through the Ohio Senate that says that school districts have to make multiple attempts to try and get students into the building on a regular basis. If you're showing that you have made the attempts, then you can deem that student to be truant. And then the consequences, the legal consequences that follow up with that, being labeled as truant because of the amount of time you've missed in school. In order to do that, you have to go through a series of interventions to show basically the state that you've tried what you could, you haven't been successful, and in turn you have to go the legal route with the student being truant. That's one factor. Obviously, you have to abide by the law. So in turn, that's something that drives teachers and administrators to use that type of data. And the factors, simply it's legal. You have to do it for legal reasons. Another factor, and again, we talked about this earlier, is for state testing. With Toledo Public Schools going into a second year of having an F rating, if we get a third F, then we could be taken over by the state. Knowing that that's happening, the focus now has shifted towards state testing in order to bump our overall grade up from an F to a D, which then in turn would not initiate the state takeover for getting 3 Fs in a row. 3 F school ratings in a row for the district. So in turn, the focus is shifted to state testing this year particularly, in order to get student scores up, but also the manner in which testing is taking place. Obviously, that's a huge factor, the state report card. So in turn, a lot of times in order to help out the state report card or the overall rating, those are factors that will influence the use of data. And I guess to finish up here, what I think the district might improve on in using data is if district leaders and people at the front office would pay a little bit closer attention to these state test scores before we got into the situation of getting a second and possibly a third F on the state report card if things aren't turned around. Because of that, I would rather see district leaders be a little bit more proactive as opposed to reactive, seeing where these state test scores were at and knowing that if we made these changes, excuse me, we would be able to increase that score. And if we knew that last year, we had these scores last year, we knew this was a possibility, I would have liked to have seen it be a little bit more reactionary. And to be honest, even though a lot of people don't like the Ohio State test, they do provide vital information that teachers can use to adjust instruction for the following year to improve student learning and obviously in student test scores. So I think we can improve on using these state test scores ahead of time as opposed to in a reactionary mode. So this has been talking about how data is used, why we use it as teachers and administrators. I hope you learned something. Thank you.